As the reality of the ultimate sacrifice hits so close to home.
At our house, he is the villain.
Sometimes you just gotta use the right thing.
Hey everybody, and welcome to That Voiceover Podcast, the show for and about the voiceover industry. I'm Stephen Cox, and today we are talking with the one and only Bob Bergen, best known for, of course, being the voice of Porky Pig, but he's also got hundreds of other animation credits to his name, including a number of other Looney Tunes voices that he does, some very prominent anime roles, and he even does the voice of Luke Skywalker. But above all, Bob is a really swell and generous guy who's helped a ton of folks get their start in this industry, and so I'm very pleased to have him on the show. Bob Bergen, welcome to That Voiceover Podcast.
I am hiring you to be my publicist.
Very good. Yeah, no, I'll send you that blurb, and you can use it wherever you want.
That was good.
Thank you very much. So now I know you do a one-man show that tells the story of how you became Porky, but can you give us just a quick overview of how that happened? I know it started from a very, very young age. You were interested in doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I was a kid who loved cartoons, and there was this little stuttering pig, and I was like 5 years old, and I told my mom, that's what I want to do. I want to be him. I want to be his voice. And my mom said, actually, I didn't say I want to be his voice. I said I want to be Porky Pig, and my mom said, you can't be Porky Pig, you're Jewish. And I didn't know what that meant because we're more Ish than Jew, and I just thought, well, hey, I'm 5 years old. You know, when you're 5 years old, you can be G.I. Joe. You can be anything. You can be a Major League Baseball player. I wanted to be Porky Pig. So Dad moved the family out to L.A. when I was 14. Not for me to be Porky Pig. He's cool, but not that cool. He just took a job out here, and I just picked up the telephone and called everything that said cartoon or animation in the Yellow Pages. And I found Mel Blanc's phone number in the phone book. I called him up. He kind of throughout the conversation mentioned the name of the studio he was working at that week, so I crashed the recording session. Found out that he's still doing Porky Pig, healthy and talented, and I just decided to study the business of voiceover and took classes from anybody who offered a class in Los Angeles, primarily for animation, a guy named Dawes Butler, who was kind of like Hanna-Barbera's Mel Blanc, and I got my first agent and job a week out of high school, and I had a day job for about 5 years where I booked occasionally, but it took me a good solid 5 years of auditioning before I could make a living at it. So that's kind of sort of a shortcut version. Now,
you taped the phone conversation that you had with Mel Blanc, is that right?
Let's be honest, let's use the right semantics. I bugged the conversation. Not legal, don't recommend people do that, but it's been many years, and yeah, what happened was I had signs all over the house. My folks were out. I'm talking to Mel Blanc on the phone, don't hang up the phone, because in the kitchen I had the phone on my tape recorder, and I was in my parents' bedroom on the receiver, so I was recording the conversation that way, very high-tech for a 14-year-old kid. And my mother, takes the sign off the phone and hangs it up because she didn't think I was talking to Mel Blanc. And, you know, she realized I was when she saw me on the phone, kind of motioning her, pick up the phone, put it back, and she did. And I listened to that conversation, endlessly, daily. I mean, just it was like my little audio Bible. And after 2 weeks, the tape broke.
Oh.
And I threw it away, and my mother retrieved it. I didn't know she'd done this, and she put it in her dresser drawer. And about 7 years ago, she called me up and said I was cleaning out my dresser drawer, and I found this tape that says phone call with Mel Blanc. Do you remember what that is? And because she didn't. And I took it to a buddy of mine at a radio station here in L.A., and he spliced it back together and digitally enhanced it, and that's what I posted on my website.
So it is available on your website. Good. We'll provide a link for that because I would love for everybody to hear that. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how you approach doing a voice match because you've really made a great career of it. And you've said that capturing the personality is more important than getting the voice exactly right. Can you kind of go into detail on that, what you mean by that?
Well, for instance, Luke Skywalker actually turned down the audition originally because I told my agent at the time, I can't do Luke Skywalker. And she said, well, you're a client request, so what do you have to lose? And I went into the audition with the client, with LucasArts, and I said, I don't do Mark Hamill. I don't sound like Mark Hamill. There's only one Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill is Luke Skywalker. And they said, don't do Mark Hamill. Do Luke Skywalker. And I went, oh, okay. They said, your voice is in the right timbre. It's in the right range. Play the character. Don't play the actor who played the character. So that was very, very helpful to me. I don't come close to sounding like Mark Hamill. I've had nice reviews that said, hey, he sounds like Mark Hamill, but, that's subjective. But I really studied the character and the traits of the character, and there's two versions of Luke. There's pre- and post-Jedi, very different styles and very different personalities. When it comes to Porky Pig, Porky has a very specific code to his stutter. There's a formula to his stutter. And I've kind of learned that when I was really, really young. And he stutters on consonants, not vowels. While you're stuttering, you're thinking of an ad lib. I don't sound a thing like Mel Blanc. If you compare us back to back, we don't sound alike. In fact, I don't think any of us who do these classic characters sound like Mel Blanc. My goal is to uphold the integrity of the character and the personality of the character. And we're taking the character. I mean, I've been doing Porky now. This month is 20 years. So we take the character in places that Mel Blanc never did. So I'm saying things as the character that he has never said before. That's difficult because you have to take the established character that everybody knows and keep them going.
There were also technical tricks that Mel Blanc did. For example, I know you also do Speedy Gonzales and Tweety. Mel, I believe, had those sped up to get the effect. Do you do that as well?
Well, Mel's Porky was sped up too. And in fact, I just recently was just bored one day in my studio. I took an old Sylvester cartoon, sped it up 10%. You get Daffy Duck. It's the same voice.
Right.
So do I do that? No. Does the studio do that? Yeah, but they speed up my Tweety. They speed up my Speedy Gonzales. Sometimes they'll speed up my Porky a little bit, but most of the time they don't. My natural voice is higher than Mel's. Also, Mel Blanc smoked. And they also used old RCA ribbon microphones back then, which have a lot of bottom to them. And today they use either a Neumann or a Sennheiser, which means hopefully something to your listeners. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it's just different styles of microphones which capture the sound in different ways. When I do Porky, I can do Porky in real time without speeding up my voice. But
that's really impressive.
Well, thank you very much. I wish you were in casting. Mm-hmm. But Tweety, when I do Tweety, it sounds nothing like him. Oh, you big old pussycat. But when you speed it up, it does sound like the character. So it's really the producer's discretion. I don't have a say what happens in post-production. I will sometimes, if it's a brand-new producer, I will suggest, if you speed up Porky just a little bit, we'll do it. If you do it too much, it sounds like Alvin the Chipmunk stuttering. But it's not really my place to tell them how to post the recording. That's their thing.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about how you create a brand new character, because I know you've done anime characters. You've done a ton of brand new characters from scratch. How is that different when you're creating a character than doing a voice match?
It's much more freeing because nobody can tell you that you're doing it wrong because it never existed before. So what I tell my students is the first thing you do with a brand new character is take the pressure off yourself of being right or wrong. You can't be wrong. It hasn't been created yet. So just dive in. I'd say 90% of succeeding at an audition is committing. If you commit to your choices, if you make the choices, then your odds are pretty good that you're going to get a call back. But if you try to second guess what the buyer or the producer wants, then you're holding back in the audition, and the microphone doesn't lie. So you got a script, you got a picture, description, and dialogue. First thing I do is I look at the face, and I try to make the facial expressions, and I try to take on the body language. It's the same as if you were performing the character on stage. If you physically play the character, the voice will follow. And then you look at the specs, you look at the character traits, you look at where they're from, you look at what they're looking for as far as a vocal range. And then you look at the dialogue, and you approach it like any actor would approach any script. Every line of dialogue is actually a scene. A scene has a beginning, middle, and an end. A scene also has a scene partner. The scene partner isn't heard in the audition, but you are performing to somebody. So you need to figure out who is my scene partner, where are they in the scene, what's my relationship with them. You put all of these tools together, and that's your audition. But this is the same process any actor does for any TV show, soap opera, theater piece, etc. This just happens to be animated. And I think the mistake a lot of people make when they get into doing voices for cartoons is they think it's all about the voice, and the voice is only one component. It's really about the acting. Every character has a voice, but not all voices have character. So you really need to, at your audition, your goal is to give them what sounds like a classic character that has been around forever. The script is a skeleton. Your job is to give it a body. meaning that you need to keep the intent of the writer, but you need to give a little something extra that brings that character to life. And that is why you see the same names over and over again, you know, the Tress MacNeils, the Maurice LaMarches, the Charlie Adlers, the Rob Paulsons, the people that work consistently, because they do this. It's a knee-jerk instinct. They know how to bring these characters to life. And a casting director really wants you to get the job. They hope that every person they listen to, every person that comes through the door is it. They really want you to get the job. But a lot of people sabotage their auditions by trying to please other people other than themselves. So you need to go in there and just please yourself, have fun. You're the party. Invite them to your party. Don't be cocky about it, but you want the buyer, the producer, the casting director to be drawn to you, but you also have to be bendable and directable to what they want.
The sage advice from somebody who's been in the industry for quite some time and have done incredibly well. I want to ask you, do you think it's still possible for somebody to kind of break in the way that you did just by being brave and young and earnest and making phone calls? Is that still possible?
Well, I'm going to be kind of philosophical and, you know, this is just me. Hey, 5 years ago, did anybody think it'd be possible for a black man to be president? I mean, anything in this world is possible. The only thing holding you back is you. Is it difficult? You betcha. Do more people fail than succeed? Absolutely. The same can be true for those who take the bar exam every year. I mean, there's nothing in this world worth having that is easy. But you never know until you try. You have to want it worse than anybody else. You have to work your butt off. In fact, you have to work harder while you're successful because you need to stay above the water. So, you know, Charlie Adler said this to me years ago when people would say to him, you know, it's so hard to get in. And his stock answer was, I did it. You know, I mean, I did it. You did it. I mean, it's just, is it easy? Of course not. Of course it's not easy. I've got friends who are with some of the top talent agencies in Los Angeles, and they can't book a darn thing. And I've got friends who are with what they call smaller boutique agencies making six figures. There's no rhyme or reason. There are no guarantees. But the only thing holding you back is you. And, you know, someday we're all, knock wood, going to be 75, 80 years old, and I'd hate to be sitting in that rocker looking back going, gosh, what if? What if I tried? The nice thing about voiceover today is it's mobile. I mean, you can live anywhere. You can live anywhere as long as you have a computer program, a recording program, and a decent microphone. My gosh, you can, at least commercially, not necessarily animation, but at least commercially, you can make a living doing voiceover anywhere these days. If your goals are national voiceover, national promos, national Class A commercials, network animation features, then you have to be where the market is. But, you know, commercially, hey, you can be anywhere and make a living at voiceover.
Now, you teach classes, and I'm going to provide a link for that on the website for the show, but I'm wondering, I know you do the one-man show. I mentioned that at the top of the program. Do you have any dates coming up for your show?
Not right now. I did a lot last year, and I traveled more than I stayed home last year. So I decided this year I'm taking the first half of the year off. I teach in Los Angeles, but I'm not teaching around the country at least until the last half of this year, and we're debating on Cincinnati, Houston, St. Louis, Toronto. I might be doing a business of the business seminar in New York, which would be just more of a lecture sort of thing. But, you know, my schedule is like yours. It's unpredictable. You never know where your next gig is going to be. And I was so busy with work here and travel that I just decided to kind of lay back a little bit this year, but kind of getting the bug to get out there and do more.
Well, Bob, I can't thank you enough for joining us, and I would love it if you could have Porky give us his signature sign-off.
Well, my pleasure. It's Mr. Cox. It's been fun, Andy. That's all, folks.
That Voiceover Podcast is a co-production of Half Full and Get Creative, Inc. Thanks for listening. I'm Stephen Cox.